Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Of course, we are here to discuss everything Tottenham Hotspur, the North London derby on Sunday. I've got three very special guests with me, three returning guests. But please do get involved in this stream because we are live on YouTube, we are live on X and also Facebook. We will be going through a lot of the viewers' questions and comments as well. So please do let us know how you are feeling as a Tottenham Hotspur fan right now, just 4 games in. Back with me, and it's been a while, is channel regular, impressionist, Darren Altman. Darren, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. This will be interesting. Nice to be back discussing Tottenham Hotspur. It's been a little while. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Back with us also is channel regular Gary Maloney. Gary, how are you? We'll talk about the football in a minute, Gary.
Yeah, I'm really well, thanks. Not too bad at all, Chris. Thank you.
And also back with us is channel regular Gareth McGuiness, of course, UEFA licensed football coach. Gareth, how are you doing?
All good, Chris. And our Monday Night Football they look forward to. So, we're back again, aren't we? So, all good.
Darren, I'm going to start the show with you. We're going to take a lot of the viewers' questions and comments in this show, and there have literally been thousands in the last 24 hours. You know, a lot of people are extremely disappointed by the defeat again at home against Arsenal in the North London derby. What did you make of the game? How are you feeling as a Spurs fan right now?
Oh, I mean, you know, I shouldn't look. You know, it's like that sort of morbid curiosity, but I've been dipping in and out of Facebook groups, and I don't really do Twitter anymore. I can't be, you know, but a few Facebook groups, and the fan base seems to be. It'd be interesting to know what sort of comments we get tonight from everyone in the chat. But the fan base seems to be really divided now. You've got the Ange out, firmly Ange out, and then you've got the give him time, you know, this is insane lot, of which I am an advocate of that. I think you've got to give him time. When I saw the team sheet, I know you've done the game on Saturday. When I saw the team sheet, I thought it was positive. I thought it was attacking. I thought it was strong. I was upbeat. I was optimistic. And when we played the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought, this is great. You know, we're taking it to them. And then, you know, we know the story, side to side, the crosses were no good, nothing in the box. Solanke's still finding his feet, and we lost, and it's upsetting. You know, we're in 13th now. I think we should give him time. I think that he's still building. This is a work in progress. I cannot see the logic of sacking a manager after a season. I don't see what happens. We sack him, we bring someone else in, they're not his players, we start again from scratch. There's just no logic in that. Gareth gave us a stat in our little chat group, so thanks, Gareth. Arteta had Arsenal languishing in 15th at Christmas, and now look where they are. You know, they're playing great football. They're cohesive defensively. They're well organized. We need to give him time. That's what I think. I'll set my stall out right now. I think sacking him and calls to sack him, Chris, I just think are knee-jerk reactions. We're all upset. We're all pissed off. No one likes losing to Arsenal, but I just don't think that's the answer. I just think we'll be going backwards if we do something like that.
Fabrizio Romano has just stated that Ange Postecoglou is not in any danger of losing his job at Tottenham despite the slow start. The project at Spurs is all centred around the Australian boss. They are 100% trusting the manager right now. Paddy writes here, this team have a soft underbelly hugging the bloody Arsenal fans before the game started. As Roy Keane said, you need to go to war. Nothing yesterday showed me that they wanted it. It's funny, actually, Paddy, that you mentioned that because I've got a couple of screen grabs here. Of course, this is, I think, 6 minutes in. James Maddison being very friendly with Arteta, and this is before the game. David Raya with Pedro Porro. I don't like to see that either, and I very much agree with Roy Keane. You know, it's a North London derby. You go into war, and this is meant to be a huge game. And for me personally, I would have liked to have seen a lot more tackles flying in on Sunday, and us to show a little bit more passion and a little bit more hunger in a North London derby. Gary, let's come to you. I know you were at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. What did you make of the game, and how are you feeling right now?
Well, I mean, we started first with Ange. I mean, there's no point getting rid of Ange now. We'll be back where we are. I think if people are saying Ange out, I wouldn't even take much notice of them sort of people. I don't think they're proper fans. I think a lot of people just do it for attention on X and everything else. So that would be silly. But what I will say with this Tottenham team at the moment, and I've been saying it, God, the last few weeks, the last few months, there's just nothing in the final third. I mean, like that game yesterday, the longer it went on and we weren't taking our chances and it 0-0, I just knew we was going to lose the game. I mean, like you said, Chris, you had Kenny Ken on the other day. He pretty much said what was going to happen. We all did. At half time, I said what was going to happen. I think he needs to, he's got to at least try and go for a plan B, adjust his tactics, or in January, we need to go out and get some players, because unfortunately at the moment, with the team that we have and the players that we have, this is only going to go from bad to worse. It's not going to get any better. You know, Arsenal knew exactly what they were doing yesterday. The same thing happened with Leicester. The same thing happened with Newcastle. Everton, look, we got a great win against Everton, but can you really count Everton? I don't even think you can't really compare any other team off them. I just think, and also, I don't understand this thing. It's a North London derby. The hatred for Arsenal is massive. I don't understand why players are hugging. Listen, today, I've had it down the gym. I've had it everywhere I've gone. And every single Arsenal fan knows I hate them. At the end of it, we shook hands and everything else. But I absolutely despise Arsenal fans. I despise Arteta, the Lego head. He was coming out of his box non-stop. He handballed the ball at one point. It's not acceptable. They need to be as angry with these players and the manager as what the fans are. Do you know what I mean? If you want to be nice to Wolves supporters, Man City fans, that's fine. No one's got a problem with that. Don't start being nice with Arsenal players before a North London derby. It's an absolute joke. But going back to the game, I wasn't surprised in the slightest. You know, Johnson, I said from day one, he's absolute crap. You know, you're losing a game 1-0 and you bring on Timo Werner. Absolute waste of a number. Complete utter dog shit. Richarlison, if he was in that game, we still would have lost because he's shit. The players aren't good enough.
Gary, I know you think that some of these players aren't good enough, but from what you've just said there about Brennan Johnson, now Brennan Johnson yesterday deactivated his Instagram account because he's received so much abuse from fans, Spurs fans.
Get it, you're a footballer.
About his performances.
Yeah.
Do you think such criticism and the way that you say things about such players, do you think that helps them?
No, but they're not going to be listening to me. But at the end of the day, if you're not good at a job and you're getting paid the money that you get paid, you will be called out on it. If I was a painter decorator and I went in and done a shit job on a house, the person's going to say, hang on a second, mate. You've said you're a qualified painter decorator. Look at the mess you've made here. I'm not paying you. These players are still getting paid week in, week out. They're not on small money. They're on massive wages. Yeah. So if fans and other people can't go on social media and call them out, who can? Because the manager's not saying enough to them because they're not performing. So yes, Brennan Johnson, if you want to deactivate your account, so be it. Go and jump in your Ferrari or your Lamborghini and put the music on and get over it. What I'd like to see is him respond to them people on social media and do his talking on the pitch, which he isn't doing. The same way Richarlison doesn't do it, the same way Timo Werner doesn't do it. People, I've seen it online, X, TikTok, going into restaurants, having a word at Timo Werner, saying how rubbish he is. You have to accept that. If you're in the public eye and you're a footballer and you're on big money and you're in a big club like Tottenham Hotspur, expect the criticism when you are playing crap. End of. Because in any other job, the same thing will happen.
Gareth, let's come to you. Tell me how you're feeling as a Spurs fan. Tell me how and what you made of the Arsenal game on Sunday. And Grant writes here, if Ange wasn't such a good geezer, would we all be so supportive? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question first. Look, I do like Ange's his personality and stuff, but I'm more behind these. I like the style of football that he plays. So I think that, I mean, if you've seen yesterday, he's been accused of being rude and ignorant and arrogant towards the reporter. Like, so I don't think he's this Mr. Nice Guy either. No. But you know, people do get behind him. But no, Chris, to answer your question, I'm really disappointed with yesterday. I was really confident going into the game. Echo what Darren says. I think we started quite well. On the front foot, pushed Arsenal back. Arsenal fans will probably say that's the game they wanted to play, but Spurs still took it to them, and that was the first time this season yesterday where we didn't really create anything. I don't think we played well at all. Granted, it was against the best opponent we faced, but we were toothless. And I have to say that once the first goal went in, we lacked any sort of belief that we were going to be able to turn it around. Do you know what I mean? We never looked like we were going to be able to turn that around once that first goal went in. I looked at the players, the body language. It became even more kind of huff and puff than it was in the first 60 minutes. And we just completely ran out of ideas. And that was the worrying sign. I think Ange says after the game that, I think he's trying to get the players to believe in him and believe in this system, believe, they can win trophies, because they looked like a team yesterday that was lacking belief out there on the pitch once that first goal went in. Well, it was Arsenal and they thought, how good they are defensively, but I think the confidence at the moment of the group is pretty low, Chris. Whether that comes back from last season and how we finished the season, I'm not so sure. But in these, especially since that Newcastle game, I think maybe all those missed chances and the criticism that the fans had on certain players, like you mentioned there, Brennan Johnson, I just think their confidence is really rocked at the moment. And that's a worrying thing, Chris, when your confidence is low as a footballer. Every game's difficult. Coventry on Wednesday night, and we're going to talk about it, that becomes a much more difficult game than it looked a few weeks ago. So just really disappointed, because I really thought there was an opportunity there for us yesterday. But it's the same old problems, individual errors. It's happened under every single manager we've had. It was even happening under Pochettino, where players were letting him down, and Ange is getting a lot of stick about the set pieces. But from what I seen yesterday, it was the goal we conceded was another individual error. I think the corners at times we did look vulnerable from Vicario, but overall I think we matched them all over the pitch. I haven't seen Saka as quiet in an North London derby. Martinelli had a wee moment earlier on, but Arsenal's players were kind of nullified. It was a boring, crap game that probably deserved to finish 0-0, but we made the individual error and lose the game. So that's the fine margins that Ange talks about, and at this moment, we're not good enough on those fine margins. We're making too many mistakes.
Gareth, a lot of criticism has been aimed at Vicario for not coming out, Romero for not marking properly again, and it's fair to say that he has cost us a number of goals in this season so far. What have you made of Romero this season so far? Because, of course, the likes of Lionel Messi come out and say that he is the greatest defender in the world, the best defender in the world. But what's happened to him at the start of this season?
Well, see, to be honest, Chris, again, a bit like the Newcastle game and the Leicester game, I mean, he made that unbelievable tackle about 5 minutes before the goal yesterday.
But what I mean is, in such a big game on Sunday, and let's take the North London derby again at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season, exactly the same thing happened with Kai Havertz. And it's exactly the same happened again with Gabriel. It wasn't good enough.
It's not so much his ability; it's his concentration, his focus. He's seen yesterday the tackles, the duels, the physical nature. It was good again, but he makes that one silly mistake where he just lets Gabriel go. And at that point, look, he's standing there watching Gabriel head it in. We've seen the Vardy goal where he stands and watches Vardy head it in. It's the same problems with Romero, and I wouldn't blame Ange too much for it's a basic error of defending. If Gabriel can see, I listened to this Martin Cowlin today and talks about if Gabriel can see his number, then Romero can't see him, and he cannot see him at all. He's ball watching again. We referenced it. We referenced it in a few shows already, Chris. But he's constantly ball watching. He's not reading the game. His actual physical duels, his tackling's quite good. He made that unbelievable tackle yesterday, just before the goal. And it's just very frustrating because Udogie nullified Saka. Porro had a shaky start against Martinelli, but that became no threat at all. Havertz was nullified with Van de Ven and Romero at times. So you think about locking all their players up and we give away a criminal goal like that. And look, I hate to say it, but we kind of referenced as well, Chris, on previous shows about Vicario not coming off his line, and it happened again. So whilst Romero, yes, takes a big part of it, Vicario has absolutely no hope of saving that where he's standing. So that's another issue that's crept on now, that yes, Vicario has been poor from set pieces, but he's now refusing to come off his line. And I think at one stage he did yesterday, and he completely missed the ball. So I think his confidence from corners is pretty fragile. And Chris, it's a bit like an animal that's weak and it attracts all animals to it. It's a bit like when Vicario's giving off these nerves, this lack of confidence, it only gives our teams encouragement that something might happen. I think this is quite ridiculous, but I've seen a video where fans were turning around from set pieces yesterday. I think that's way over the top. But when you've got that kind of nervousness, when there's a corner, you shouldn't feel like there's a good chance it's going to be a goal. How many corners go on in a game? You might have one the odd time, but there's loads of games where there's no goal scored from a corner. But it kind of feels now like every time we give away a corner, it's almost like a free kick in the edge of the box. Everyone's panicking, and I'm looking at the players. They look scared. They look confident. They lack of confidence, and that needs to be addressed. But
we're 4 games. We're 4 games in, Gareth. We're 4 games in. This is when the confidence is meant to be extremely high, not only in the Tottenham team and the Tottenham squad, but amongst the fan base as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's a real lack of confidence within the team, the fans in the stadium when the opposite team has a corner. Because we spoke about that Everton game, whilst we were in such control, it was only 2-0, and Everton had about 4 corners before half time, and every one of them we looked ropey. And if they had to go back to the end of the game at 2-1, we've seen what happened in the Spurs Everton game last year. We were hanging on for dear life towards the end. The fact they didn't capitalise, we went on, they won the game 4-0. But you always felt yesterday, every time there was a corner, I was watching it in the pub and I was thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And we got away with it a few times, but yes, it is a coaching problem, but a lot of the players as well aren't doing the basics. And we spoke about the basics of defending on last Monday's show. For anyone that hasn't seen it, go back and watch. But a lot of these errors are basic errors that, yes, the coach has a responsibility, but these are experienced players like Romero. He, as Messi says, he thinks he's the best. I mean, that's not true at all. But he's is he 25, 26, Romero? He's an experienced defender. He's played in World Cup finals. So he should know better. But as I says, taken away from that, Chris, I thought it was really alarming, the lack of belief once we went 1-0 down, that we never looked like we were going to get back on it unless it was a deflection or a penalty. You couldn't really see anything happening in the general play. And that's the first time that's happened this year. Whereas against Newcastle, I kind of thought that Newcastle were hanging on, and Leicester, times we should have put them to bed. Whereas yesterday, I think we could be playing the we're on this podcast, maybe we wouldn't have scored. I mean, I can't think, bar that Solanke opening, and I wouldn't even call it a glorious opportunity. Yes, he should have done better. But, Raya didn't have to make any saves yesterday, really. And I know Vicario didn't have to make too many. But that's the fine margins that people, no one cares about Arsenal's performance. They won the game. Yeah. What did we do in the game? They impose ourselves. And let's be honest, that Arsenal team were there for the taking. They were at halftime. I was thinking, if we can up this, we can get 3 points here. And it's another. I think I done a podcast, Chris, myself on Friday on my channel with an Arsenal fan, and I says it's another door that Spurs have an opening. Will they be able to walk through it? And again, it's another moment we've not walked through that door. An opportunity's landed at our feet, and we can never get that walking through the door moment, because if we had taken that yesterday, won that game, all of a sudden the negativity turns to positivity. You go into Coventry on Wednesday night, you think, right, this will be easy, we'll beat them. But all of a sudden, like Chris, it's panic stations, and me and Darren and Gary's all kind of in the same boat with Ange. We want them to stay. But if things don't go well on Wednesday night, this is going to be very difficult to defend.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are taking this that the fan base are going a little bit crazy after just 4 games. It's not just about the 4 games, though, is it? It's about a longer period of time. I'll come on to that in a second. Darren, let's come to you on Vicario. Straight after the game, Vicario said, "We will analyse this game in the morning. The performances don't reflect the effort. It is tough. Gabriel was free to head the ball into the net. We have to stick together. This defeat hurts a lot." Now, Gary Neville on Vicario's performance against Arsenal, he said, "I just don't like it when goalkeepers sort of throw their arms around and they look like they're panicking. It makes me nervous. It looks like Vicario has got frogs in his pants."
Yeah.
Glenn Hoddle on Vicario said his instinct is to go backwards. He's never looking to come out. His body language is always going backwards. He's got to come and punch some of those balls out. He flaps. He is not convincing. Now, of course, back last summer, the summer before last, of course, we were heavily linked to David Raya, ended up at Arsenal. Spurs ended up with Vicario. What have you made of Vicario? Are you getting a little bit frustrated now with Vicario, that the fact that he's not coming out punching these balls? Because the pundits, the guys that have been there, got the T-shirt, done it, played the game, Vicario come out and basically blamed the defending. and said he was there. He had a free header. Who's at fault here?
When we first got him, obviously no one knew who he was. He came from some club that no one's ever heard of, and I liked him. I mean, I do like him. I think he's a good shot stopper. He loves to play it out with his feet. That's a discussion for another day because I'm not too sure that works. But that's not what you're asking me. But like, it's like we're going backwards quite quickly. I don't know why he isn't commanding. What was the match? You'll have to remind me. I think it was Everton where they were lobbing corners in really close to him, and they scored. And now other teams have thought, aye, here we go. And they were using that as a proper tactic against Spurs. They were making when they were taking corners, they were targeting Vicario and making sure it was close to him so he would flap. And all the players would crowd him and bully him. Now, that has been an absolute tactic since that Everton match. And teams are seeing that as an opportunity to get to really panic him and to smother him. And I don't know whether that's dented his confidence, whether every time they get a corner now, he sort of craps himself a bit and think, oh, God, what's going to happen here? But, I mean, you're right. He's not commanding when it comes to these set pieces. He should be coming out and wallop. You know, they're his balls to, if not claim, but punch. Why he's not doing that, I don't... What are you smiling at? Why he's not doing that, I don't know whether it's a lack of confidence. What's going on? Like a lack of confidence or what? But yeah, he seems nervous, and I don't know what's going on. I liked him. I do like him. I think he's a talent. But just like we said about Romero switching off and not doing the basics, which are basics. You know, like losing players, not looking round, losing your position, ball watching. I think the same can be said for Vicario. He should be doing the basics right. And as far as I'm concerned, corners are basic things where he should come out, command it, like you say, be proactive and not reactive. Because as soon as you're reactive, the ball's behind you. But if you come out and wallop and punch a ball and command your area, you're going to show that you've got the confidence and ability. I don't know why he's going backwards. I've got a funny feeling it's since he was targeted by other teams and they were all crowding around him.
Gary, let's come to you. Let's have a look at the starting 11 that started against Arsenal on Sunday. Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Maddison, Johnson, Solanke and Son. Now, my point here and my question to you is there is one new player there from last season, and that is Dominic Solanke. And, of course, he has spent the last couple of games before the Arsenal one out injured. One change. Did Spurs do enough in the transfer window? Because Ange Postecoglou has come out multiple times and said, yes, we've done enough in the transfer window. Yes, I'm very happy with the transfer window. One change in that starting 11. No. Is Ange Postecoglou expecting a lot of these players to grow and develop extremely quickly? Because he keeps saying it, and he said it again. After Sunday's game, I always win trophies in my second season.
I mean, you know, fair play to him for coming out and saying that, because he's definitely put the spotlight and the pressure on him. I mean, I heard that today and I was like, wow. I mean, look, it's not impossible. I'm not going to be completely defeated and say we're definitely not going to win a trophy, because there is always a chance. But like you said, only one change. I mean, I know we brought in we brought in some of the youngsters, Gray, Birdvale, all that, but he didn't use any of them. So I don't really know. Do you know what? What struck me yesterday? Gareth touched on it anyway. We didn't create very much. You know, if it was a game, if it was a game where we still had Harry Kane in there, okay, things would have been a lot different and stuff. But one thing I'm noticing, which I noticed very much, was when we went 1-0 down, we don't have a captain that sort of says, right, lads, come on. You know, like a Roy Keane, a John Terry. I love Son, but he doesn't have that sort of way about him, like where you go 1-0 down to your North London rivals and they say, right, we're not going to have it. And let's go. There was no reaction, really.
Who these days has those types of players?
Well, it's got to be someone, because there's plenty of teams out there when they're going one down. I'll get
Man City with Rodri. Rodri, don't they? Man City have Rodri. He'd be a bit like that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
Odegaard. I've seen Odegaard.
He's right. Gary's right. We lack players with an aura about them. We've no aura about us.
No, this is what I mean. This is what I'm trying to say, Gareth. You know, because we went 1-0 down, and you're looking for that player who's got that type of personality that's going to say, you know, it would have been Harry Kane, obviously, but someone to just say, come on, lads, we're 1-0 down here. We've still got half hour or so to go. We need to get this game back on level terms. We need to go there. We haven't got that with our keeper. We spoke about, you know, Vicario. I mean, I actually really like Vicario, and I know I'm getting on a lot of the players' backs and stuff like that, but Darren said it. He's a great shot stopper. He's just... The problem is with Vicario, what happened was they learned very quickly that he's a bit iffy on corners and set pieces. And every single team now, before they go into a game, you can bet your life they're sitting there doing their tactical talk and they're saying, target the goalkeeper. Now, he wasn't fully to blame for that goal against Arsenal yesterday. You know, Romero has to take some of that blame. But unfortunately, the spotlight is on Vicario. I still think if it wasn't for Vicario, we could have lost by more than 1-0. So he has to have some credit in the bank. But unfortunately, he's too low on confidence with corners and set pieces. Every team knows him. But going back to the game, we went 1-0 down, and there's no player in our team at the moment that can get the players all lifted and say, right, let's go for that equaliser. We're lacking any real desire. We're also lacking just the basic skills up front. I mean, it's great to have 7% possession, but, you know, are we having that possession or are Arsenal giving us it? I mean, I didn't see anything yesterday, Chris, that made me think we was going to score. When the game first started, at 5 or 10 minutes, I thought, we started bright, this is good. After about 10 minutes, Chris, that whole game, and I'll also touch on this as well, because I know some of the guys weren't there, but in that stadium, I've been to a hell of a lot of North London derbies, Chris, like you. I know you've been to a lot more. It was the weirdest atmosphere, and I think the atmosphere was like that because I think the majority of the fans knew when we went 1-0 down, that was it. And if we're feeling that, 64,000, then you can bet your life the players are feeling it and the manager's feeling it. Also, I'm a big, massive fan of Ange, but, you know, he's just standing there with his arms crossed. He's not moving. As much as I hate Lego Head, he's coming out of his technical area. You know, he's handballing the ball, he's shouting, he's screaming, he's throwing the ball back to the players quick. Ange isn't doing any of that. All those things included together meant we lost that North London derby yesterday, and we were soft.
Gary, I've got to admit, the last 10 minutes of that game, I watched Ange quite closely, thinking, you know, what instructions. I was right behind him. And I thought, what instructions is he now going to give the team?
Nothing.
And I think you were right. Has he said everything? Is it now the team that just, you know, have they reached a certain limit? And are these players good enough to be playing against? You know, let's face it, we all don't like Arsenal, but they're a superb team.
Yes.
They're a very well organised team, and it was a great win for them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday.
They've got a better manager, they set up better, and they've got better players. And it pains me to say it because I despise their fans, players and manager. But let's be honest with ourselves. Going into that game yesterday, and certainly when that full-time whistle went, we were miles away from them. And I know there wasn't much in it. I get it only finished 1-0, but they could have won by more, and they controlled the most of that game. I think we had some half chances, and the fans tried to lift the players a little bit. But like I said to you, Chris, and I go back to it, when we went 1-0 down, there wasn't one single player on that pitch that turned around to them, any of the other players, and said, let's go, including Ange. Even Ange didn't react when we went 1-0 down.
Jamie O'Hara, after the North London derby, said, we signed players from Bournemouth, Burnley, Leeds and Nottingham Forest. Expect championship results. Now, Gareth, I want to come to you because I want to show you some pictures here. Very, very interesting here. Dominic Solanke, the picture at the top, has got the ball. Now, if you see this picture, what an opportunity just on the edge of the 18-yard box to have a shot at goal, or even, you know, take the touch, take it forward and have a shot at David Raya. Picture number 2, you can see that the Arsenal defenders are closing in. Picture number 3, they're getting closer. And picture number 4, the ball has been blocked. Now, some people could argue and say, you know, Dominic Solanke has spent a month out. You know, even Ange Postecoglou after the game said, you know, he was rusty. He spent a month out of the game, so he was never going to be as sharp as we would want. But for a striker who scored 19 in 38 in the Premier League for Bournemouth last year, you would expect a shot to be taken at that point. And the most frustrating thing for me and a lot of fans inside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday is the fact that we had chances. I think Maddison had one at one point. Heung-min Son had one. The one that I've just shown there, Dominic Solanke. And it seems that we're always, whatever player has got the ball in a shooting position is either looking to the right or the left to make that extra pass that is not needed. Why are you not shooting? And I'm not saying this or showing these images to, slag the team off or slag these players off in any way, shape or form. I'd just like you, especially as a UEFA licensed football coach, to explain to me what the understanding is that you're not going to win games, you're not going to score goals if you're not shooting.
Yeah.
Chris, it points to the two things that me and Gary spoke about. One, there's a serious lack of confidence. And two, as Gary alluded to, no leaders, nobody willing to take that risk, all trying to pass the buck, not having the confidence to shoot. Let's pass to somebody else. Get right. I think that's, whilst Dominic Solanke was rusty yesterday, I thought he did as well as he could have done in his duels. I thought he did okay against Saliba and Gabriel at times, but didn't have much service. But that was his one opportunity. And I think Gary's mentioned already, Harry Kane was the best at that snapshot, wasn't he? He just had his first time and got it on target, and hopefully it went done. He had to just had it and get it on target and see what would happen. Keeper could have parried it, somebody could have tapped it in. But I think from the lack of shots, as you says, the Maddison one yesterday really stands out where he passed it sideways to Son, I think it was. That was a huge, huge moment. He's have to shoot. But I think, again, that's the crisis of confidence that the attacking players are having. And what Gary points out, that lack of leadership, that nobody wants to take that responsibility on them. It's like they're afraid to miss, because confidence is so low. And, you seen yesterday when Gabriel, it was poor from Romero, but Gabriel attacked that header with confidence.
Gareth, I don't get it. Why is the confidence so low? We are at the start of the Premier League season.
I think it's just from the lack of, the missed opportunities. And look, this isn't a new problem. Remember, after the fantastic start to last season, we lost 3 in a row where we should have beat Villa. We missed so many chances. Should have beat West Ham. Missed so many chances. So this isn't something this is a recurring theme we've had. Last year there wasn't enough quality in and around the box to score goals, and it looks again, Chris, like we've left ourselves short in the transfer market. The club have went down the route of young players. They're going to need time, but you look at this fan base where this club wants to be. You don't get time. Fans want success now, not let's. I was speaking to a fan last night on X, and he was like, "I'm not interested in how good Archie Gray or how good Lucas Bergvall will be in 2 years' time. I'm only interested about now." And that's the problem that we've got in modern day football, that no one, especially for a club that's starved of success, promised so many things in this big shiny stadium. Arsenal fans had the same argument when they moved to the Emirates, that they left Highbury to compete at the Emirates, and they didn't for so long. It's only now they're competing. Spurs left White Hart Lane to be a team that was going to compete. We've went backwards since we went to that new stadium, let's be honest. Yeah. So fans are frustrated. They've seen these too many false dawns, and whilst I do think these young players are going to be good players, we've said before, it's you're not going to throw them all on now. So we've kind of got the same team as we had last year. A lot of these younger players that come on are going to play more in the Europa League cups, and then again, that could go wrong if we go out. But I think there will be more of a balance. I think we will go fairly strong on Wednesday night. There will be some younger players on there, but I think you'll probably get the bulk of. So you'll have 7 or 8 of those 11 probably will play from Sunday, but. That is the problem. You look at Odegaard, he come on yesterday, just looked in our Brennan Johnson, doesn't it? He didn't look like he could do anything. When I seen Timo Werner coming on, I wanted to leave the pub because I just do not see what he offers. And you look at players like Eze and Pedro Neto, and you think, how much of a difference would they make if they were on? And I understand they were a lot of money and there's question marks about their injuries. But even going and signing those players sometimes give fans a lift that there's ambition there. But we didn't go and get them players. We went and got Odegaards, and we went and got Bergvalls, and we went and got Archie Grays. And look, it's wonderful if they turn out to be great players. But right now, they are probably too young and too inexperienced to navigate us through this period. So Ange is relying a lot on players that were there last year. And I have to say, a lot of them are very inconsistent. Bentancur's good 1 week and poor the next week. I know he's had that injury and he's had a few problems. Son looks like he can get back to his best 1 week, and then he takes 10 steps back the following week. Solanke, who's been injured, and Richarlison's always injured. So again, we've no striker again. Kulusevski, he flatters to deceive. He looks easy on the eye, but his output's not good enough. I mean, there was a chance yesterday with him where he took that great first touch and he should have just had it. He waited 2 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds longer, and the player blocks his shot. And You know, I know he was unlucky at the end with that shot, but how many times did we see Kulusevski do that at the start where he put them in the top corner, and now all of a sudden they're going over the bar? You know, if it's so many inconsistent players, Chris, I do feel for Ange a wee bit, because I do think that the style of play is good. We look tidy in the round midfield. We're putting sequences together, patterns of play, but when it comes to that final delivery, it's just miles off in terms of quality. And look, I'd love to sit here and be
who are you talking about?
The delivery. Well, Brennan Johnson's at times has been poor. Madison's. There was one yesterday. Madison on his left foot. It didn't even bend.
Every player there in the last minute or so that you've criticised, these are all players that Ange Postecoglou has brought in.
Yeah. So again, yes, he has to take responsibility, as does the recruitment team. Like, I think that's one thing that you can't say that you can't not say this is Ange's team now. You know, a lot of players that we didn't want are shifted or been shifted on, and a lot of these players that are playing, he's brought on. You know, Vicario was his player. Porro, fair enough, was only signed a few months before, but he's been very much an Ange Postecoglou player. Udogie's been an Ange Postecoglou player. Romero was here, fair enough. Van de Ven's come on. Dragusin, for me, has to come on now. They play with Van de Ven. I think Romero needs to be dropped. He has to be. If he continues to play Romero now and Romero continues to make these mistakes, I'm blaming Ange now, not Romero, because he deserves to be dropped now. All the passion, the duels, fine. But if you can't do the basics, I want to see something different. I want to see Dragusin get an opportunity. The midfields all has Benton or Basuma, Sarr, Madison, all these players. He's got the option to leave and we're keeping. He's picking. You know, he's midfield 3 last year when everyone was fit. He's picked that midfield 3 consistently most of the time. So you can't really say they're not his players or players that he wants to keep. And the front 3's all his. You know, and Son's obviously been here a long time, but most of the squad is his now. So you know, we can't make too many more excuses for him. But I do feel for him in terms that I think that a lot of the players are capable of more, but confidence at the moment, and we keep referencing it. Chris, it's very easy to lose confidence when things are going wrong, despite it being early in the season. It looks like a lot of these players' confidence is shot, but it is up to the manager to fix that. He has to get that belief on these players. You know, and just going big and brave and bold with these statements. But at the end of the day, if you can't back it up, you're in trouble, because the fans will start to disbelieve. When he's saying, I think we can win a trophy, well, that's
if we lose on Wednesday to Coventry and then another couple of league defeats, it's going to be seriously worrying.
Right? Because see, if your manager's going in front of a camera and saying, I won things in my it's changed it from I usually do, I always won in my second season. I wonder how many of the players actually believe they can win something this season. Because if they don't believe, then we're finished. Because then you know there's nothing. Nothing.
At the moment, they don't even believe they can take a shot, let alone win a trophy. No.
But look, that confidence can change in football. All it takes is a couple of positive results, and Solanke starts scoring goals, and it will look different. I do think we've been in worse situations.
For me, yesterday, I think that was one of the worst North London derbies I'd witnessed. Not just for the players, but for the fans as well. I thought that was a really bad North London derby, and I've been to some bad ones, but that's right up there with one of the worst ones. I mean, even last year, look, we lost 3-2, but you know, went 3 down with a bit of fight in us, and we came back. And
I think at the moment, just we have to navigate through this period. We aren't necessarily, even if we go to Coventry on Wednesday night and won 1-0 or 2-1, just anything to get a 1 now at this stage.
What if we lose on
Wednesday?
Wednesday?
I do believe Ange will get time, but if he loses on Wednesday, Chris, this is going to really ramp up, and I don't know where, you know, if we're sitting after, if we say we lose to Coventry, draw with Brentford, stumble past Quarterback, we have less convincing one, and then lose the Old Trafford, and then the following week we've got, I think, is it Galatasaray? Or sorry, if we come to Brighton, and we've got to say 1-1 in the next 4 or 5 games, and there's an all international break, I don't know if he'll survive it, because the pressure will be that insane.
Well, Jamie Redknapp has issued a sack warning already to Postecoglou. He said Spurs need to pick up results quickly. It's a fact at this club. If you're not winning games, you don't get long here, and Ange needs to start winning some matches. Darren, let's come to you, because as I said, it's not just about this season. Now, this is a league table. It would be the league table for the last 32 Premier League games. Spurs sitting here in 9th, played 32, won 13, drawn 5, lost 14, scored 58, conceded 56 with 44 points. Now, only West Ham United, Wolves and Brentford have let in more goals, and only Wolves and Brentford have lost more games. Now, these stats, when you look at them, worst start to a Premier League season since the 15-16 season. That was Pochettino's second year, but we did end up finishing third in that league table. But the last 11 Premier League games, 7 defeats, just 4 clean sheets in 37. We know that the club don't care about clean sheets. We've heard it from Vicario. We've heard it from Ange Postecoglou. It's not important. 8 wins in 22. So when we talk about the poor start this season, Darren, it goes a little bit further back than that, because of course when you look at these stats, 32 games, 14 losses, 56 goals conceded. Is there a part of you that worries, or are you fully still on board saying, well, he needs time? Because I think it's very fair to say that Postecoglou walked into a very difficult job, an awful big mess for him to clear up, a lot of players to get out the door, a lot of players to come in the door. Is this criticism early on in his Spurs career, is it fair at this stage, or does he need the time? Does he need more tools? Does he need the patience from the fans?
I still think, despite those stats, which aren't good, and on paper they're not good, you've got to give him this season to see what he. I mean, unless we get dumped out of all the cups and we absolutely start plummeting like a stone, you've got to give him time. He's got a philosophy. He's got a way of playing, and you heard what he said. I think it was this week. He said fundamentally, he said, I only know one way to play. I want my team to set up to play like it, and that involves scoring more goals than the opposition. That's what he says. He says, and he holds his hands up and he says, yes, we're going to be vulnerable at the back because I want front-footed football. Now, whether you agree to that or disagree and say, well, he's a one-trick pony, as I'm reading in the comments, you've got to give him time. Listen, I hate the term happy clapper because I think it's a derogatory term. I think it show when people use the word happy clapper, it means that you're just blindly cheering on your team without any sort of recourse, But I'm not happy clapping, but I'm saying that
Darren, I get behind the team. No matter who's playing for Spurs, I get behind the team, right? Whatever player it is, even players like Timo Werner, I really want it to work for them at Spurs. But is this squad good enough? Have we done enough in the transfer window? Is the quality of the players that we've brought in for Ange Postecoglou good enough to finish in the top 4? Because he's talking about trophies. And I think, forgive me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think it's frustrating a few fans at the moment, him talking about trophies, because you're thinking, we're nowhere near winning trophies this season.
No, listen, when you talk about top 4, you're talking about the Premier League, but we could easily win, the EFL Cup, the Carabao Cup. What's to stop
easily?
Us? What's to stop us going on a run and winning that cup?
It has to be won on Wednesday. For me, I don't know how. I think it's going to be off. It has to. We're talking about giving him time, and I want to give him time, but he can't lose this game on Wednesday. I don't think he can survive. I honestly,
Gareth, that goes without saying, mate. I mean, that goes without saying. We can't lose. They're 14th in the Championship. If we get turned over by the, and by the way, we haven't forgotten the FA Cup in 1987. By the way,
but Darren, in the last couple of years, Colchester under Pochettino, Sheffield United under Conte, we could go on and on.
I know that, but I'm with you because I know what you're going to say, Chris. You're going to say what you say, and I'm behind you when you say he needs to start strong. Forget your Archie Grays, keep them on the bench, come out with his A team, and then once we're 4-0 up, then bring on the youth for a run around. But I absolutely think he needs to take this seriously. He cannot. If we look at the team sheet and it's Archie Gray and it's Bergvall and it's Mikey Moore up front, I'll smack my head against the wall and say, what are you playing at? Because, but going back to your question, I genuinely think we need to give him time. And no, we haven't made the signings. I'm not a fan of Timo Werner. I'm not a fan of Richarlison. And as one of the guys said in the chat, when he leaves Bergvall on the bench when we're a goal down against Arsenal and brings Timo Werner, fucking up, my heart sank. I was like, really? You've got an attacking flair player who wants to get the ball forward and deliver balls, and you're bringing on a guy that can barely tie his shoelaces, let alone cross a ball. I don't get it. But you've got to give him time. You can't not give him time. You've got to give everyone a time to buy into his philosophy, rightly or wrongly. We could come back here in 4, 5, 6 months, and I can hold my hands up and say I was wrong. The guy's a clown. He's got no tactics. But you've got to give him time. You've got to.
My worry is, Darren, the fact that when you look at the bench and you're thinking about game changers, 10, 20 minutes to go,
I know.
And this is us virtually at full strength at the moment with this squad. So you take out, 1, 2, 3, 4 players, injury, suspensions, other issues on and off the pitch. Then where will we be? Competing for trophies this season? I think that we are very thin in this squad. And I've said that throughout the transfer window that we need to do a little bit more. I got called negative. I think it's very, very realistic. The fact that we had all those injury problems last year. I feel that we should have done more.
I thought against Newcastle, Johnson had a fairly good game, actually. There was one move where he ran down the wing and jumped over the player and put a ball in. And I thought he was great. And then he reverts back to type in this game where he can barely get it past his first man. I had to smile when you use your analogy of a painter and decorator, Gary, because before we came on, I was going to say exactly the same thing, but like an electrician. If you're getting paid to paint a wall or to change a plug and you can't do it and the wall falls down or the house blows up, this is what you are trained to do. And it's like Johnson and Burnett. You can't get a ball in the box and beat your first man. These are basic things.
But nobody, Darren. I don't agree with you or Gary in the fact that people should be getting abuse on social media.
No, I never said that. I never said that.
No one should be getting abuse.
I never said that.
What I will say is, when you are in the public eye and you're a Premier League footballer, just like if you're an actor or an actress, it happens. Chris, you get abuse in your line of work doing a podcast. I do being a performer on stage. You have to take this. Let's be honest about it. Let's be open about it.
I get it all the time.
You as an expressionist. All the time. Same with you, Gareth. We all get abuse, all right? And we've all at times had to come off X or whatever because of it. But the best way, look at David Beckham, what he went through. Paul Gascoigne as well, the tabloids, everyone. The best way to deal with that is to do your talking on the pitch, not deactivate your Instagram. Johnson should be turning around saying, do you know what? I'll show these idiots, these trolls all over my social media. Like what Rashford did. He was dropped. As soon as he come back, he got a goal.
I don't think he's got the mentality.
The whole country turned against him. The whole country turned against him. And what did he do? He scored that free kick and he got his career back on track. That's what they need to do. That's what Johnson needs to do. But no, definitely 1,000,000%, Chris. I'm not agreeing with anyone giving abuse on social media. But unfortunately, that is the world we live in now.
Yeah. Well, we certainly do a lot of talking on this podcast.
That's just me.
Gareth, let's come to you. Heung-min Son, after the Arsenal game, said we have to stay positive. The players need to take responsibility. It is frustrating and painful. Now, when I listen to these words, and fair enough, Heung-min Son come out and did the interview again. I feel like we have heard these words again and again and again, year after year, under multiple different managers. My question to you is, what do you think is going to be different this time under Ange Postecoglou? Because when Jose Mourinho come in, I think a lot of us felt that this guy is going to lead us to a trophy. Antonio Conte, been there, done it, got the T-shirt, won everything where he's ever gone. Didn't work out. And then, of course, he had that rant at Southampton after our draw. And now Postecoglou. A lot of comments in the last 24 hours or so have stated that Ange looks broken already, just 4 games in.
Well, funny you pointed out that yesterday at the end of the game, and I was I think his pride is hurting big time at the moment. When he says about that set piece thing that he's got $1 million other things to be worrying about, that was a really silly comment to make. Because every time now a goal comes in from a set piece, it's referenced up. It's almost like that Alan Hansen, you'll 1-0 for my kids. Everybody always remembers Alan Hansen for that. People now are starting to question his integrity a wee bit, and that's why he's snapping at reporters, because he said that. Nobody else said that for him. He says that, he says We've got a million other things to be worrying about. Set pieces is the least of our worries, but it's a pretty big issue. You can't ignore that. Whilst we're saying individual errors, but it's still that theme of a set piece. And when your players are panicking, Vicario flapping or else staying on his line, players looking nervous, and just fans turning their backs to a corner. It's not a penalty kick, a corner in the stadium. They're looking the other way. That's a pretty big problem. And I think his pride at the moment. Yeah, that's it. His pride at the moment is really hurting. He's got his head down, his hands in his pocket, and I do think he's going. Can I not? I wouldn't say, because I do think he is quite. He backs himself, but I think there is negative thoughts running through his head of, I'm not affecting it the way I wanted to affect it. And at the moment, Chris, I'm absolutely terrified on Wednesday night. Obviously, I don't want to go to the cup, but I really feel that I've got a connection with Ange that doesn't have with Conte or Mourinho, and I really want it to work for him. And at the moment, whilst that, I was thinking about it more today, and I'm really doubting if it will. And this is probably the first time I felt like this. I think it needs to change soon, because the longer it goes on, we're going to be, we're going to have more negativity. And we've been down this road before, Chris. It only ends one way. And if Levy does think that the players aren't backing the manager, or they aren't taking the tactics on board, he will pull the plug. He's done it before. No reason to say he won't do it again. But the only thing I would say is Ange has come out and says that he's been backed, and I don't think he would say that if he doesn't believe he's getting backed. But I do think it was, as like Fabrizio Romano says, that this is a long-term project. But the only problem with that, Chris, is you have to buy yourself time, or have a very, very patient chairman, which we don't have. I think under any other circumstance, Arteta would have been sacked if there was fans in the stadium. It happened during COVID. It probably got longer than he would have done in a normal season, and it's benefited him. But when you've got fans in there that are turning more and more every week, we said last week 50-50. It's probably less now. There's probably more. I've seen fans now on X that were back in Ange have turned. And look, I won't turn no matter what, to be honest, because I won't flop flop. I'll stick my chest out and say, look, I got it wrong. But I would be like Darren. I would let this run out as much as we can, but it has to start with a one on Wednesday night. If we won on Wednesday night,
start having a plan B now, though, lads, doesn't he? Start.
But he won't. You know what? Most managers don't have a plan B, but you have to give. This is where you'll give Arteta credit. Arteta yesterday was missing 2 key players, and he says, "You know what? We're going to sit off and and we'll hit them on the counter attack, or we're winning a set piece," and that's what happened. Whereas Ange went to Man City last year with half a team missing and went toe-to-toe, and we were fortunate enough to get a 3-3 draw. That was fortunate more than anything. Yes, we played okay in the game, but we conceded so many opportunities. I mean, Cowlin must have one from 6 yards. He never misses. Alvarez hit the post. There was chance after chance, and we could have went down half-time, 6-1 down. But he was fortunate that day. Whereas he's at the moment, he's probably thinking he's been unfortunate. But there was games last year where we were fortunate then as well. The Everton game as an one where, was that one at the end where Vicario was his knee and post in the last kick of the game, kept it out, and we were 95 minutes, and we were bombing players forward to get a third goal when there was 30 seconds left, lost the ball. And so there is lots of problems there, Chris, but he really just needs the results now. Forget about performances. Just get a result on Wednesday night. Because I think even if we won on Wednesday, if we were not to beat Brentford, if we were to draw with Brentford, yes, it would be disappointing, but it wouldn't be an absolute travesty. Whereas I think going out of the cup would be a travesty. This is the most important game now for the next few weeks, because in the league you can always claw points back. In this Europa League, because it's a league phase, if you lose your first game, it's not
I watched Bournemouth Chelsea the other day. Chelsea were terrible, but at the end of the day, Bournemouth had all their chances, missed the penalty, everything else, and then right at the death they got that goal.
Well, that's it. Even if we lost that first Europa League game, it wouldn't be a complete disaster because there's 7 more games. But this cup game is a one-off game. We have to win it. Where we have to go to Coventry are struggling as well. We have to go there and win. However we do it, it doesn't matter. Even if it's a penalty shootout victory, yes, it wouldn't be flattering. But it's just to get your hat into the next round and then try and address it, because confidence
he could make 10 changes like against Fulham and it might work
out.
I
think he'll make.
Come on to that.
I think he'll make 3 or 4 changes max. But look, Chris, I'll finish off just by saying that confidence is something that's lost very quickly in football. This is a coach. It's lost very quickly and very hard to regain. So it might take a couple of scrappy ones just to get the winning back and the getting that feel for one. Because Chris, if you remember, you pulled up that table there. But I think this is all real started since we lost that game at Fulham, because we beat Villa the week before and everything was looking good. Players were coming back. since we lost that game to Fulham, that was our first real bad defeat. We lost it 3-0. But after that, we lost 3-0 or 4-0 at Newcastle, 4-2 at Liverpool, battered at Stamford Bridge 2-0. You know, beat by Arsenal. There were so many bad results that followed, and the performances weren't exactly there. Since that Fulham game was when the form really dipped. And if you look at that, you know, how many games have we won since losing to Fulham in March? You know, there's not that many.
Also, if Ange has got a style of play which is shit or bust, and he doesn't mix it up, and there are no long balls. I mean, we played a couple of long balls yesterday, and I went, oi. I lit up because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, Vicario did a couple long balls, which were quite
good.
I'll be totally honest with you. He won't change. He'll keep playing this attacking football, and if it means he gets sacked, he'll get sacked quicker.
Darren, that's exactly what I wanted to come to you on, because you know, we're constantly told by, you know, various fans all around the world, wherever Ange has gone, he's won trophies, he's been successful, and he's had these same questions asked of him, and he's proved everyone wrong. However, a lot of people have said, yeah, but this is the Premier League. It is completely different. When Ange doesn't change things up, and when journalists ask him, you know, week by week, month by month during the season, you know, are you going to do this or are you going to do that? And he sort of smiles and says, you know the answer, mate. No. Yeah. Well, you can do the impression a lot better than I can. But when he says no, does any part of you get frustrated with that? Because is it gonna work in the Premier League? Right.
And I'm not gonna flip flop and go back on my words. As much as I've said we need to back him, and I'm still allowed to be frustrated. This, you know, some of the way we play football, this playing it out for the back, this Vicario, like playing short passes to defenders. My arsehole does the 5p, 50p dance. I hate it. You know, I get so nervous. And I'm not saying that we need to hoof it long and just make everything 50-50. I'm saying that there is a time and a place for mixing it up. If you play a long ball, like Harry Kane used to go ping and smack a long ball, you can take out 4 players in the midfield, negate them, take them out the game. Eric Dyer used to do that for us. He used to spray a long ball. We don't see that anymore. Everything is tippy-tappy and sideways and sideways. Yesterday, Arsenal set up so well in defence. There was no movement. I was shouting at the TV, where's the effing movement? Where's the runners? There were nothing. We're trying to walk it into the goal. And I think, I mean, I'm not a tactician, but I think to mix it up, to surprise a team, if he refuses, if he wants to be belligerent and stick to this way of playing, we'll get found out, and we are getting found out now, because we're going to get teams like Newcastle and Arsenal that go, do you know what? Have the ball, Tottenham. Have it. Fill your boots. Because I tell you what, if we catch you on the break, you're going to know about it, and that's what happens. So I'm saying that, yes, he needs to be a bit more flexible. Yes, he needs to mix things up. Yes, I'd like to see a few more long balls. You know, all this inverted wingers, this is great, but where's the width? You know, if Udogie keeps on coming inside and Porro keeps on coming inside, we've got no width. You know, I'd like to see a bit more variation. But, you know, I'm not the manager. And, you know, you're like me, Chris. You know, in Conte we trust, in Ange we trust, in Mourinho we trust. We have to, because they're our managers. And as soon as and when the arse drops out of it, I hope it doesn't, but if it does in 4, 5, 6 months' time, then we can go, all right, who's your next guy? But until then, you have to sort of trust the process.
Yeah. Well, we are still going through a major rebuild, Absolutely. And I think the expectation is pretty high. But does Ange Postecoglou help himself by keep saying, I always win a trophy in his second season? I don't believe that is helping.
You know, look, Australia, Brisbane Roar, he wins the A-League. Australia, he wins the Asian Cup. When he was Yokohama, J-League, Super Cup. Celtic, I mean, I'm not a fan of Scottish football. Premiership twice, Scottish Cup, you know. He does win trophies wherever he goes. I've written it down. But we're in the Premier League. We're not in Scotland, where there's 2 teams in the whole bloody league. You know, we're not in Japan. I know nothing about the J-League, where, you know, good players go to die. You know, this is the Premier League. I mean, he's making a bloody bold claim. That's all I'll say. He's making a bloody bold claim. We could win the Carabao Cup. We could win the FA Cup. You know, we could. We could go
So, Darren,
on.
If we don't want something soon, Chris will have to rename this podcast Allergic to Silverware.
Darren, yes or no? Yes or no? Are Spurs winning a trophy this season?
I think we need a few more players. I don't think we're there yet. I think
yes or no?
Players at the moment, no.
Gary, John Rowland writes here, Ange's time is up. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I don't agree with that. But like we've all been saying, he does need to kind of get a plan B. He does need to adapt. He will need to change stuff around, and he can't come out with silly comments like that. I mean, why second season? Why not win it in the first season? Why make 11 changes against Fulham? Why not go for trophy in the first season? I think he's not done himself any favours with that. But it's definitely not time for Ange out. Listen, it's a difficult time at the moment. Our form's been absolutely awful. We've lost so many games, and the North London derby is painful.
Gary, are you surprised by some of these comments? Because some of these comments are pretty harsh.
Yeah, I've been reading them the whole time.
Now, let me read a couple out here. Big Boy 7089 says, you're the burden here. TFB97 writes, Ange, you're a glorified PE teacher. And Chris Patterson says, yeah, mate, you're shit. It's pretty harsh.
It is, but listen, look, everyone and every fan is entitled to their opinion. And people are very, very upset and angry at the moment. And I get that. We've just lost the North London derby for the third year in a row at home, and we didn't put up a fight. No. So I get it. The manager didn't put up a fight. Arteta, he came to our backyard and was screaming and shouting and running the show. It wasn't good. All of the players as well. There was no reaction. It's a sad time at the moment, Chris. We're very vulnerable. The manager, the players, the fans. We're not in a good place, but it's a results business. If we go to Coventry, we beat them, and then we get a result against Brentford, and we get through our first game in the Europa Cup, then things will feel a lot better. But it pains me to say, I just can't see it changing much with the players that we have. I think Solanke will come good. I think he'll get good form. I don't think we have to massively worry with Vicario. But, I remember when Son wasn't playing well, and he's not playing well at the moment, he was getting dropped and coming on as an impact sub. And I remember he got brought on against Leicester and got a hat-trick. Maybe we need to start thinking about that. Maybe we need to drop Son a bit. Madison, we need to drop. These players can't be untouchable, Chris, because let's be honest, none of them are on great form. And I actually felt a bit sorry for Son yesterday because he was trying, he was running around, but he's lost a bit of pace. And he's lost his main man, Harry Kane. And we need to be honest to ourselves. We've not replaced Harry Kane. And as much as we want to think that we have, we haven't. And we missed him massively yesterday, massively. It's a shame, but it is what it is.
The other thing, can I just say, sorry, Chris, is that for us, it's absolutely everything. And listen, don't get me wrong. He was manager of Celtic. He knows what a derby's like, the Rangers, Celtic, the old firm, one of the biggest rivalries in world football. But for him to turn round, and I don't know whether this was like a planned thing, and say, I would be absolutely livid if any of my players were preparing for this game more than any other game. I sort of get the sentiment. You should be up for every game. But when you showed those pictures, Chris, of everyone smiles, it's like I don't know whether he was. I don't think he did himself in favours with that comment.
No,
saying that Spurs fans should not treat this. It's like, are you joking? Like you tell a Celtic fan not to be up for it.
The problem is, Chris, at the moment we're at a point and we're at a stage, not just with Arsenal, but certainly with Arsenal where they've beaten us at our own ground now 3 years running. They're not even concerned about when we go to their ground. No. We've won there once in like 20 odd years. That's where we are now, and it's a sad state to be. But even as a supporter, I don't really have any confidence when we go to the Emirates. I genuinely don't. I just think if they can play like that against us at our ground and we go one down and we don't react or even have a half decent chance and no player grabs the team together and galvanises them and says, right, let's go. We still had 35 minutes at that point, lads. And we did nothing. And I'm not confident when we go to Emirates. It's a defeat. And yes, the world doesn't just revolve around the Tottenham Arsenal game, but that is a big factor of the Premier League. It's one of the biggest games of the season. And I don't think we did ourselves justice yesterday. And not just the players. I don't think Ange did in that game. And I don't think the home fans did. And I'm not criticising the home fans for that. I just think there was a horrible feeling and atmosphere in that ground yesterday. It was almost as if the fans knew that we weren't going to do anything. It
Gary,
just wasn't nice.
Gary, let me stay with you for a second, because Anthony Williams writes here, we're dominating possession in every game. Unfortunately, we're not taking our chances and we look dodgy at set pieces. We should really be 4 wins from 4. Ricardo Lawrence says here, Andrew's the man for the job. Watch how many chances that we have had and we have wasted them. Now, when you think of all of the chances and opportunities that we have created in all 4 games, have you been impressed of how we have played? Because, of course, we know what the results have been. 1 win, 1 draw, 2 defeats. But overall, have you been happy as a Spurs fan with the performances, with them creating all of these opportunities? Because I know that we have been extremely wasteful in front of goal, which we saw a lot of last season. But the question that I'm asking you is, have you been happy with the performances?
I would say 75 to 80%. Yes, I have been. Not fully, but yes, I have been. And the reason for that is, Chris, because I remember going to that stadium under Conte, and I remember I was watching Tottenham West Ham in a game where we won 2-0, and I fell asleep while I was at the stadium. I actually nodded off. And I remember leaving the stadium and saying to my boy, do you know what? That's got to be the most boring win Tottenham have ever done. So I will say this, that we have been in most of the games. We've been competing in the games. We've had chances. The Leicester game was an exciting game. Although I was angry at the end of it, that first half, you can't knock the team. The Newcastle game, we played really good football. I was a bit disappointed, or very disappointed with North London Derby. But you can't say we aren't playing front foot attacking football. But what I will say is when Vicario and Ange are coming out, turning around saying, we're going to concede and we don't worry about that. That's all good and well. But if we're going to lose 1-0, what does that do?
Had we have taken our chances in all 4 of these games, we could have been sitting here, all 4 of us, with big smiles on our faces, 4 wins from 4, saying Ange Postecoglou is a magician. So is it Ange Postecoglou's fault at this stage? Because he has set the team up to try and score goals, creating chance after chance after chance. But because everyone in the final third has missed those opportunities, we would not be talking about the defensive side of our game, would we? We'd be talking about the final third scoring goals.
85% the players and 50% Ange, because Ange is the manager who sets up the team and he's not being proactive, not changing it when he could do. He's not galvanising the players to play at their best potential. But the majority of it at the moment, you have to say, are the players, because we are creating the chances. That Leicester game, we could have comfortably won. The Newcastle game, we could have comfortably won. Even the Arsenal game, Chris, I said before that game kicked off, I said it all week down the gym, the first goal will be crucial. Tottenham could have taken the lead in that game, Chris. If we had gone 1-0 up in that game, it might have been a totally different story. Like 3 years ago, you know, we got that first goal, we got the penalty, we got the second goal, we got an Arsenal player sent off. We were 3-0 up, you know, as soon as the second half kicked off, we got the third goal and we sat back and we relaxed. There's not much different in how that game started yesterday. The problem is we're not taking the chances. Is that a player's confidence fault? Is that a player's ability fault? Is that Ange's fault? Is that maybe some of the fans to blame? We're not making enough noise. It might be a little bit of everything, but ultimately, like we all say, we all discuss, like you just mentioned, if we had won all of those games, or even if we had lost to Newcastle but beaten Arsenal, it would be a totally different X. It would be a totally different podcast. It would be a totally different feeling around the whole of the team. But unfortunately, Gary, we didn't.
Just a quick yes or no. Are the fan base right now calling for Ange Postecoglou to go? Is the fan base overreacting? Yes or no?
Yes.
Gareth, let's come to you. Hindle Walker writes here, £40 million for a great player like Archie Gray. Where is he? I hope he's not another player whose talent we miss out on. Now, you've mentioned that you think that he may play. The Football Insider have stated that he is in line for his first start in a competitive game in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt against Coventry on Wednesday. Do you expect to see him in the starting 11? And are you surprised so far, Gareth, in the 4 games so far? Because when we look back at pre-season, so many young players, the likes of Gray, Bergvall, some of the development players played extremely well during pre-season. Are you surprised that they haven't been given more of an opportunity in the opening 4 games?
On to the first part, I do think Archie Gray will come in on Wednesday, as does Lucas Bergvall. I think they both probably come in. I don't envisage too many more changes. Dragusin possibly as well. The front 3, I'm not sure who he'll play with. I think Solanke and Son both play, but that'll be interesting to see who goes there. But I think the majority of the team will be similar, but they'll make changes. I think there's a belief that from Ange that them two can play a big role. But I think that the initial plan was probably to go with more experienced players, Chris, in the opening games. And then once it came to the Cups and the Europa League, we would probably rotate the team a wee bit more. But with results being as bad as they've been, of course, there's probably people now thinking maybe these boys need an opportunity. But the problem being now that you would have liked to bring them into this cup game on the back of 3-1s and a draw or 4-1s, but now they're going on there with this pressure that they could possibly play in a game that decides their manager's future. Because let's be honest, if we lose this game on Wednesday, Gary's comment probably changes. You know, the fact that, and I do believe he's right, that the fan base is overreacting. But it will be very difficult to sit here on Wednesday night if we were on this podcast, going out of the Cup of Coventry and saying they're not overreacting. So football can change very quickly. But Chris, I'll go back to that question as well with Gary. You know, if you're a salesman and you knock on 1,000 doors and don't make a sale, some people aren't interested. It's about like having all this football and playing, creating chances. Some people are only interested in results. Personally, I do like to see performances because I think there's more sustainability. Whereas with Conte, I don't think there ever was. It was always relying on Kane and Son to pull us out, and we better look at the back, defend deep, and that had a sell-by did. Whereas I think this style of football, you know, when you're playing as a team, I don't think we rely on one individual anymore. The actual team, you know, anybody, you know, there's no sole-dependent player like there was with Kane and Son that relied on them. But I think there's a lot more date now, and I think there's a lot more, you know, this is how you'll improve players, you know, learn to break teams down and stuff like that. But as I said, Chris, I think a lot of the fan base aren't really interested in that. They're only interested in what is posted at the end of the game. Have you won? Have you lost?
But Gareth,
business.
Gareth, imagine if Ange Postecoglou left the football club next week, right? What are people honestly expecting to happen? A manager to come in and bring us instant success with this squad, because we'd have to go through multiple transfer windows again. We'd have to go through the whole process again. Another manager? Are you kidding? That is not the way forward, in my opinion. And, hold on. And even if we lost that game at Coventry on Wednesday evening, I, for one, still wouldn't be saying that I want the manager to leave, because it is a process. We are still going through a rebuild. A lot of work still needs to be done at the football club, but you've got to give someone time, because, you know, what do you want to keep doing as a Spurs fan? Keep going through all of these managers one by one, year after year after year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Chris, I'd be the same. If we did lose on Wednesday, I would still be of this needs more time, but it becomes more difficult for us to keep backing, if you know what I mean. So you need to buy yourself time in this job, and a one on Wednesday certainly does that. And you know, it probably won't change the people that say that Ange has to go, because they'll just say it's only Coventry, it's a game you should win. But I do think just getting that pressure off you with a one was what the football club really, really needs. But as I says, Chris, if you're a salesman and you knock on 1,000 doors and you make no sales, you're just as bad as the boy that does knock on any doors and makes no sales in some people's eyes. So if you're not producing that product, then people are interested. You know, if we play the next 10 games, dominant football matches, and don't win games, people will just say that's just as bad as playing bad and losing all 10. So at the end of the day, people are looking at it black and white results. And whilst we're looking at it differently, and we can see that, you know, I think we've been in much worse situations before. I do think this will turn around. I do. But I do think it's going to require patience, because I do think, as Brennan Johnson, for example, I don't want to keep bringing them up, but is he capable of scoring 10 or 15 goals? I don't think so. I think we've got a player there that needs time, needs to be molded, needs more work put on it. And we've got a coach there that can definitely improve players, because we've seen at Celtic. I know at Celtic, a lot of people will look down at Celtic, but you know, he was able to coach Celtic to a level where they competed with Real Madrid in the game. So he did improve them, and he's done the same here. You know, initially we were very good on the eye. I still think when we're playing these teams, maybe it's not so much yesterday with Arsenal, but I think there was a fear factor about Newcastle when we went there. You know, they were on the back foot. They were defending deep, last minute, last touch challenges. Granted, yesterday I think Arsenal were comfortable, but we'll probably not. They're probably the best defensive team in the league. I think Arsenal will probably go to Man City next week and be confident that they can hold Man City off, because they did it last year, didn't they? They got a 0-0 draw. I think Arsenal have that air of confidence when they go anywhere now. They believe that they're defensively sound. So we'll probably not come up against that kind of resistance too much more this season. In terms of, I do think they are the best at defending, but Chris, 100% what you say, we can't go free on now our rebuild, and the type of player that's been identified to come into the club is the type of player that Ange wants. You know, your Archie Grays, your Bergvilles, they are the types of players that would suit an Ange system. So I do think if they come on Wednesday and do well, there's a possibility they could stay on and play on Saturday for the Brentford game, because there's nobody really pulling up any trees on there. Madison played that first game against Leicester, but other than that, he's been poor, I think. Sarr, he seems to chop and change with Sarr. But Chris, what I would say is a lot of these players are young. You know, they're going to make, and they're going to be inconsistent. They're going to make mistakes. Your Sarrs, your Johnsons, your Odebergs, you know, your doggies, hot and cold at times. These are young players. They're only going to learn with more game time, more experience.
We haven't mentioned Jed Spence. I thought he was a good prospect as well, and he's put on a lot of weight.
And I'd be interested to see if Jed Spence plays on Wednesday. You know, does he rotate Porro? He could possibly be one of the options. I'm not sure, but you know, I do think we'll go fairly strong, Chris, on Wednesday. I know we'll come on it, but whatever team we put out, we really should be winning this game regardless.
Well, John Murray writes here, not a great start, I accept that. However, we are only 4 games into the season. Let's not panic.
Yeah.
Darren,
well, that's because remember the Pochettino season, we referenced it 4 points after 4 games, and look how that went.
Yeah. But I think this is a very different squad, Gareth, to what Pochettino had. And Harry Kane was in that team as well. And
forget that.
You know, I feel like the final third was very different in that season.
We haven't replaced him, have we? So...
Darren, let's come to you. Let's talk about Wednesday, because you've mentioned Jed Spence there. How many changes do you expect? Because that Fulham away game, dare I mention it, we were out of the League Cup on penalties away at Fulham at Craven Cottage last August in the second round. Well, of course, we entered the third round because of being in Europe this season. How many changes would you like to see personally? What do you expect at Coventry on Wednesday? And you mentioned Jed Spence. You've mentioned the likes of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall. Would you like to see all of them start on Wednesday? Is that strong enough? Because I felt like Gareth's comment in our group yesterday, asking us all the question, who is the strongest 11? The strongest 11 probably was the team that played Arsenal on Sunday. So what should Ange Postecoglou do, bearing in mind we've got that Brentford home game on Saturday in the Premier League, which, of course, is very important.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Timo Werner anywhere near the team. I don't want him
Finally, people are saying it. Finally.
I don't want it. I just don't think he adds anything. If he started with, I mean, like I said to you, I want to see a strong team. If he makes like 8 or 9 changes, and God forbid we go out, it'll be that'll show a real tactical weakness. I wouldn't mind seeing Odeberg. I think he looks incredibly tasty. I think he looks a good flair player. When we went up to Hearts and saw the team play, I thought Lancashire had a good game. I thought Archie Gray had a good game. But like I said, I want us to start with a strong team and bring them on when we're, please God, touch wood, comfortable. I don't want to see him, leave, say, Maddison on the bench, or I want to, and then bring them on later when we're a goal or 2 behind. I want to see him play a strong team. I want to see him take this seriously, and I don't want to see any. Let's make substitution. I want to see him go out and out to win this game, and then if he wants to bring some players on.
Darren, do you not think there's a need for a bit of a change though, because the team wasn't brilliant on Sunday? You know,
sorry, Darren. Also, Ange said after the Arsenal game, we need to give them game time. Talking about some of the younger players and some of the fringe players who haven't played so far this Premier League season. So the likes of Bergvall and Gray, I think that he is referring to them. So he is going to make changes. He's already said it.
They had good pre-seasons. So I mean, I wouldn't lose too much sleep if they started with them. You got your Mikey Moores. What would he do with him? Would he be there on the bench and give him minutes? I'm not sure. I wouldn't lose much sleep if he didn't play Johnson on the right. I'll tell you that now. I wouldn't. If he swapped him for Jed Spence, I wouldn't lose sleep. What do you think?
You know what I think? I always say this in cup competitions. That is when I'm the most upset when we go out of a cup competition, because I love to see Tottenham Hotspur taking every single cup competition seriously, no matter whether it's the League Cup, FA Cup, Europa League, Europa Conference League, Champions League, whatever the competition is. Let's go out to try and win it.
If Dragusin, Bergvall and Gray come on, I don't think that's ridiculous. I don't think that's awful. You know,
I was just about to say
three changes.
I was just about to say, Gazza, if he wants to swap Romero out with Dragusin, who played really well against Newcastle, by the way, I wouldn't be upset by that. I thought that'd be a good swap.
Gary, I know you're travelling up to Coventry on Wednesday. Now, what are you expecting when you see that starting 11 coming out, bearing in mind what happened at Fulham, bearing in mind that we've had this poor start to the season? I'm certainly expecting us to be very clinical in that final third, no matter what team goes out, whether it is Timo Werner in the front line with Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, Son, whoever it is. Dominic Solanke could probably do with some minutes because, of course, he spent the last month out. Yeah. So I've no doubt that Solanke needs the game time. And that would be, you know, an extremely strong front line with Dominic Solanke in it. And I would back him all day long to get his first goal in a Spurs shirt at the Coventry Building Society Arena. But what are you expecting? What would you be happy with? And if you suddenly saw, 7, 8, 9, 10 changes again, would you be disappointed?
I would be, but we are going to see a lot of changes. I said that a few weeks ago, and I stick by that now. There's going to be minimum 6, probably 7 changes. But to be honest with you, like we touched on before, it might not necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, I've always been start with your strongest team first, go 2 or 3 up, and then bring the kids on. But that really was our strongest team on Sunday. And look, I know it's Arsenal. I get that. But we could make them 7, 8 changes, which he probably will do, and we could find ourselves 2 or 3-0 up. So, listen, as far as I'm concerned, he's still the manager. If he wants to make 6, 7, 8 changes, which I think he will, but make a minimum of 6, so be it. Let's see what the result will be. I mean, at the moment, with the way things are, he's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. So, if he goes with a strong team and we go out, the fan base are going to go mad anyway because we've gone out to Coventry. If he makes loads of changes and we go 1 or 2 down and he brings the team on, the fan base are going to go mad saying you should have started stronger. So I don't think he can win either way. But what I do know, Chris, is I know you're hoping he's only going to make 1 or 2 changes, but that is not going to happen. There is going to be a massive, completely different team on Wednesday night. But it's not to say they can't beat Coventry.
I hope it's not massively different. I would accept 4 changes.
No, more. There'll be more.
If it's any more than 4 changes, then it's going to be interesting.
There will be.
I think Gary summed it up well, but he can't win either way. Even if we beat Coventry 5-0, people say it's Coventry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we need a win. We need a win. We need to get through to the next round. Yeah. Gareth, there's a comment here from MC, and they state here Dominic Solanke is a new Soldado, Mr. Sitter on Sunday. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Bearing in mind that Solanke's only been with us for 2 games.
It's been 2 games, and he had that 1 big chance against Leicester he should have scored, but other than that, even if he had got that shot away yesterday, I mean, it wasn't like he was a favourite to score. He was going to be up against, Raya. He's been excellent for Arsenal, and he was outside the box. It wasn't a guaranteed goal. So he's only really, he is the type of player that you've seen at Bournemouth last year, and there's an argument that Bournemouth's wide players are better than ours. Semenyo, I think, is a good player, and they had that lad, what's his name, Kluivert. He's quite technical. They've got pissing and get the ball into the box, and their delivery is probably better than some of our crossing. So he, as a player that needs service, he's not going to be a Harry Kane where he's going to create goals out of nothing. I think if you give him the service, I think Paul Merson summed it up well. Erling Haaland would have struggled in that Spurs team yesterday because the delivery was that poor. So you're only as good as your service when you're a number 9 like Solanke. Because I think he's actually off the ball. His pressing was decent for a player that's probably a wee bit rusty, and I think he competed well on no duty. Remember, he spun Saliba, didn't he, early on in the game, and they played that little 1-2, and it started off quite bright, but he needs game time tomorrow, and what an opportunity against a team lower down in the divisions, championship team who are a wee bit struggling for confidence themselves. Can you go out and get that first goal? But look, Coventry won't be flustered. I mean, they beat Wolves away last year in the FA Cup. They got to the semi-final, and they were 3-0 down against Man United, and they almost won it 4-3 only for that VAR minimal offside and lost on penalties. So they'll not be phased by playing Spurs. They'll not be panicking, and they'll look at us and think, well, do you know what? We might be struggling, but they're going through a wee bit of a confidence crisis as well. And how often do you see these games where when you go to these teams out of form, sometimes surprise results can happen? And look, I think there is a lot of people out there that think there is a possibility we could lose this game. And the fact that it's only 90 minutes makes it more difficult because we have seen more shocks in the League Cup. That the fact the extra time's been taken out, because the Premier League team playing a championship team should have a stronger squad, ability to make 5 or 6 extra time. You can make
the media if we lose it.
What's up?
Can you imagine the media if we lose it?
I think the Premier League teams, it's if it's 120 minutes, they've got the bigger squad, the more quality to change it. Now the fact it's only 90 minutes, we've seen it against Colchester, didn't we? When it went to penalties, we missed chances and we got beaten penalties. So Coventry will be playing for penalties. Thinking keep it tight, hit Spurs in the counter attack. If we can hold them off or even get an early goal, and Spurs have to come out and even if they concede, they get the penalties. And our record on penalties is pretty dismal. I can't remember too many shootout victories over the years as a Spurs fan. So look, we have to make sure we start fast, get the first goal. And I think if we do get that early goal and get the first goal, we'll see a bit more confidence. Look, it's a type of game I could see us losing 1-0 or 2-1 if we're off it. But it's also the type of game if we start and we take our chances, we could put 5 or 6 past them, and everybody's sort of thinking, well, there it is now. We broke that sort of mantle, and we can take it on the Brentford. Because if you look, Brentford have lost Ivan Toney. I seen today Vissa's injured for 2 months. He's been their best player so far this season. He's out for 2 months. So you're going to be playing an under-strength Brentford team as well. So we've had a wee bit of luck there that the next 2 games are very, very winnable, and we've got everyone available. So realistically, there shouldn't be any excuses for not winning these next 2 games, Chris. And then you go on the Quarabag, and they should be beatable. You should beat them at home, and we've beat them before at home over the years. So all of a sudden, you go to Old Trafford 3 in a row. United, aren't pulling up any trees. Go to Old Trafford, winnable. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the next few games.
But you're right, Gareth. You're right, though. You're right.
They are very winnable. So I do think it all starts on Wednesday night. If we can get that first one,
I know exactly how it's going to plan out. It's Coventry are going to look at how we played against Newcastle. They're going to look at how we played against Arsenal. They're going to be very happy to sit back and let us have the ball.
But that's up to us, Darren. We have to be more. At the end of the day, these teams are sitting back. But if we have the quality, they break them down. We've got players that are. I don't think this team is awful. I do think this team is capable of pushing teams for the top 4.
They're going to allow Johnson to cross it in and hit the fucking Ford Fiesta in the car park, all day long.
As Darren says, I would be happy as long as Timo Werner doesn't play. I would terminate his loan now, because I think even Mickey Moore, if he come on Mickey Moore, he would offer more. I really do. So for me, the Werner thing doesn't make any sense at all.
Are we all agreed no one likes Werner now? Is everyone on the same page?
Well, I said that from when he started. I says I wouldn't have many more club.
Because there was a lot of fans that were still like backing him. When
Gary,
the second loan came about, they were like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. And I was like, listen, he's a waste of a number. And it's an easy, another loan. This
is what I would do. I would go with Vicario, Porro, Dragusin, Van de Ven, Udogie. I would go with Gray, Bergville, and I would go for Bentancur from experience in midfield. And then I would go front 3. I would go Son, Solanke, and Odegaard. That's what I would go. Or if we want to be a wee bit more maybe play Gray, Bergville, and Kulusevski. I do think Madison needs to come out of the team. I do.
He will. He won't play
enough.
Gary, I was going to say on Timo Werner, I don't want to be hating on any Spurs players, because I want it to work for Timo Werner, and I hope that Ange Postecoglou does improve him somehow this season to give us a little bit more, especially in that final third, as I expect from every single player. So I certainly don't want to be spreading any hate or towards any.
I just don't think you can improve him. It's
like Darren says.
You're entitled to your opinion.
But if Darren's right, if an electrician blew up 5 houses in a row, you wouldn't book him thinking, "Oh, it can't be. He can't blow up my house as well." You know, he's had too many of them. You can't.
Timo Werner's not. Yeah. Okay. Gareth, I think you covered all bases there. You said that Spurs could win against Coventry. You said that Coventry could win against Spurs. And you also said it could go to penalties. So I think you're going to be right somehow. Yeah. Darren, let's come to you. Anthony Lee. Anthony Lee writes here, Spurs are an average team. Now, what do you expect from this season? Because I'll tell you what, as you guys have been talking, I've been scrolling through hundreds and thousands of messages, and half of them I can't even read out on this podcast because it would just be called, super negative. And I feel like this podcast so far has been quite negative towards our football club. And
you've got to say how it is, football, Chris.
It makes me genuinely sad to that everyone feels like this after 4 games. But Anthony writes their average team. What do you expect from this team this season?
Well, you sort of intimated that in the last question. I mean, based on these players, oh God, unless some of them by divine miracle, suddenly come into their own and start really, really performing. We've named players. Basuma's been playing hot and cold, but he had a really good pre-season. Johnson blows hot and cold. If he starts to find his form and has a resurgence, if Solanke starts to really find goals and start banging them in and gets a real confidence, if he can keep Son on the left and not in the middle and he can do his thing, then I'm not going to say that we're going to start be Real Madrid, but we could have some form. I think the key is in a cup. I really do. I mean, are we going to finish top 4? Oh God, I doubt it. But I mean, if we could have a really good cup run and get into a final of a cup and hopefully win a trophy, that would be amazing. Even if we were like 5th, 6th, 7th, that would be a good run to you. At the moment, we are an average team, but who's not to say that if all these players start finding some form, it starts to gel, we start to click, who knows what could happen? I know that's a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but I mean, the talent's there. He's got an ethos, and if the players want to buy into that ethos and buy into the philosophy, and we start to click, then listen, we're not going to be Man City and we're not going to be Liverpool. I dare say we're not going to be Arsenal, but we could certainly do well in the cup. That's what I'll say.
But the problem isn't, Chris is probably right, that it's hope more than expectation, isn't it?
Well, I know, but I mean, what do we do when we got players like Romero, who's ball watching and is completely out of position, is let players run behind him and have clean headers? What do we do when we got people like Johnson who can't cross a ball? What do we do? We got brings on Werner when we're a goal behind and he doesn't do anything. What do we do when we got Richarlison completely injured all the time, and when he does come on, he gives it all of that and does fuck all? I mean, that's the reality of it. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it.
Chris,
can we go on, Gary?
I'm going to put a smile on your face. I think we're going to win the Europa.
I know you do.
I genuinely do. I think that's our
think
best chance and opportunity to win a trophy. I genuinely think that is our best way of winning a trophy, especially where the Champions League teams don't drop out and go into it. I think we could.
I know you do, and you've said this before. And although I love people coming on this channel saying we're going to win trophies, I think it's unrealistic.
Yeah, but you say that, but I think probably out of all the trophies available to us, I think we've got more chance of winning that this season than any of the others. I genuinely do believe that.
The problem, and I agree with Chris, Gary, problem, and I agree with Chris, is that at the minute we can't beat a good team. We can only beat the teams that are worse than us. We can't beat the. If we go and play a Roma, or if we go and play, even that Galatasaray. Where's the evidence? They say we're going to go out there and we're going to perform.
Don't forget, we're not far off from the January window. And if we strengthen and if the team do click, I do feel the Europa is our best chance and best route of winning a trophy. I genuinely do. I believe it. I genuinely do.
I'm going to have to apologise to Chris because I do like the fact we're bringing these young players on, but Chris is right. We really should have bought at least one star was going to come on now and really get us going. We've got
this is what Tottenham do. Remember that season Liverpool lost the Champions League final? Keeper done a couple of errors, didn't he? They swapped the keeper. They brought in Van Dijk. Bang! It was done. They won the Champions League the next season. That's just how they do it. Tottenham don't do that. We really don't do it. We just have to try and find a way. But we're going to go out and get those great players. And ultimately, I know this is going to be a painful thing to actually accept. The really talented, great players, the ones that are already proven, are not going to want to come to Tottenham.
That is true. That is true. But if Pedro Neto was going to Chelsea, we could have got him. If Eze's still at Palace, we could have got it. If we're going to go down the route of Bergvall and Gray, I'm all for it. I think these two boys could be really, really good players. Instead of signing Odegaard, go and sign. You've got the young players in Bergvall and Gray. Instead of signing Odegaard, go and sign a Pedro Neto or an Eze. And you almost, if we had a Pedro Neto playing yesterday, we'd have felt a lot more confident, and Arsenal would have had a lot more fear about Spurs. I'm thinking Arsenal's looking at going Brennan Johnson. What's he going to do? Probably not much. Werner, not going to do much. Odegaard, Burnley player last season. Whereas if you have an absolute beast on there that's capable, we've seen Neto destroy teams, top teams like we've seen him batter Chelsea when he's at Wolves. We've seen him score against Arsenal. We've seen him score against us. He's a type of player that creates fear in teams, and that sometimes gives the other players more time and space. Whereas that was the first time Arsenal were comfortable. They didn't really sense there was any fear in Spurs, any fear from our players. They nullified them all. And whereas if we're going to go down the route of Bergvall and Gray, fine, but at least bring on one star player. And that's where I have to say that maybe I didn't see that in the summer, but Chris was right. We needed that star player that was going to come on.
We need another striker desperately. We need a backup striker.
Harry Kane so much.
And that is breaking news because Gareth never, ever admits he is wrong. So Gareth actually says that I was right for once. So that is breaking news on this podcast. We know that. Now, Darren, let's start with you. Last question for you all, or last point, because thank you so much to all of the questions and comments from all of the viewers and listeners today. We've had thousands in, so thank you so much for your input. Darren, I just wanted to give every one of you an opportunity to say anything else that we haven't mentioned or we haven't had a question or comment about, how you're feeling as a Spurs fan and how you're feeling about the season ahead, because, of course, Gary's mentioned the Europa League. Of course, we're going to be starting in the Carabao Cup. Hopefully, we will go far in that competition, starting at Coventry on Wednesday. Of course, we face Brentford on Saturday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, back in the Premier League. So these games really are coming thick and fast. Is there anything that you want to say in terms of any players that we haven't mentioned, or anything about Ange? Because, as I said, there are thousands of comments come in. I couldn't read half of them because they were super negative about the manager, negative about some of the players, and I certainly don't want to go down the route of just reading out comments for the sake of it, dissing our players. We're not all like Gary. So, Darren?
I really hope this team clicks, and I hope that.
I hope I don't turn on the podcast on Wednesday night and Darren's got his hand behind his head like that.
I was going to ask you, are we on genuine? Are we on TV? Because I'm working on Wednesday night. Are we on?
We are on TV.
Darren, I want to see the face that you're going to be, showing on YouTube on Wednesday evening after the game. Come on, what are you going to be looking like?
That's better. If I turn on the podcast and you put your arms behind your head like that, I'm gonna.
For those of you on audio, Darren is now doing jazz hands, so he's happy.
Yeah.
I really hope that. I mean, I'm going to say something that I don't think it will happen. I want to see more variation in our play. I just do. From what I've seen this season, and what was the game where we were playing was it Newcastle where we were playing some wonderful one-touch football? It
Everton
was like bang, bang. Everton.
But Everton was brilliant. We played some really good stuff against Everton.
It was beautiful to watch, but I want to see more flexibility. I don't know. Listen, if Ange has got one style of football and one style of football, I mean, I'm sort of contradicting myself, then it'll be what it'll be. But I just want to see him mix it up. I want to see some long balls. I want to see more runners. I want to see some variation in style. That's what I'd like. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. He seems to be very belligerent. As much as he's a sort of joker and all right, mate, yeah, sort of, all of that. You know, I'd like to see him mix it up a little bit, and I want to see a bit more variation. That's what I would love. I'd love to see different.
Isn't that what Simon Coyle says to you on Britain's Got Talent?
Hold on, Gareth. Hold on. Darren, do you think that the podcast could get a special message from Ange Postecoglou this evening?
Yeah,
sort of. Well, you know, the Chris Cowlin. I've been, I sort of, you know, like the guy, but sort of, don't get assy with me, mate. Sort of. Yeah, I'd like to see some more variation. I really would. I want to see him mix it up and just mix things up. I'm really worried that if he is that belligerent and that, I don't know if stubborn is the right word, if it's my way or the highway, I'm just worried that we're going to get found out pretty damn quick. And teams will just set up to beat Tottenham because we're very, very predictable in how we play. The fullbacks are going to invert. You know, we're going to walk it in. There's going to be, you know, we need to pressure Vicario because he loves to play short balls out. He said before he even came to Tottenham, I was watching that documentary, and he said, I like my goalkeepers to play in a certain way. We've seen how he likes his goalkeepers to play, short balls to his defence. You know, and these are all things that other managers can absolutely have a plan for and can target us directly. That's why I just want to see more variation, because if people are going to set up in a very, very specific way to beat Tottenham because we're predictable, I'm very concerned that may be our downfall this season.
Gary, do you want to have the final word here?
Yeah, I just wanted to just touch on the fact that I haven't got a vendetta against any Tottenham player. And I wish well for every single Tottenham player. I want them to, you know, improve, succeed and stuff. But I will just say how it is. And when I feel a player is playing really well and is, you know, doing better than what I expected, I will also say it. And I think Kulusevski had a great game. I think Son tried really hard. And I think Vicario, apart from being a vampire and scared of crosses, apart from that, he was very good. And he's a great shot stopper. And I do feel that all I want to see on Wednesday and then for the home game against Brentford is not necessarily anything particular, like more cross ball this or you know, all I want to see is more fight. And that's what I didn't see at the North London derby. There was no fight in any of those players. And that's all I want to see. And if I feel like they're giving it some fight and giving them their all, then I'll be happy enough for that. But that's not how I felt on Sunday. When I left that stadium after that 1-0 defeat, I walked back down that high road and really genuinely did feel to myself that the players didn't really give it all they could give. And I did feel that way the year before when we lost 3-2, but I didn't feel like that yesterday. So for Wednesday night with Coventry, Chris, you know, as you said, we're driving down there, you know, when I'm driving back from that game, even if the worst case scenario was to happen and we was to go out and lose, if I looked at that game and I thought Tottenham gave it a good go and had a lot of fight about them, I'd be happy enough for that. That's all I want.
I hope I'm smiling Wednesday evening. That's all I say. Parked up somewhere in a lay-by in Coventry, recording the podcast. If you're parked up
in a lay-by somewhere in Coventry, you'll be smiling, Chris.
Hopefully. Gareth, anything else you want to say?
No, do you know what? We'll finish on a positive, Chris. I'm going to issue a rallying call to the fan base to get behind the team on Wednesday. All hope isn't lost. If we can convert this positive play and the better opportunities, actually shoot when the chances come, and we get Solanke firing. Well, that's it. If we get Solanke firing, the man can score goals. Look, I do expect us to win on Wednesday, Chris, and won quite comfortably. I do think we will win. You know, I did say earlier on there, it could go one of either ways because we know what the history of Spurs, but I do think if we play like we have played in the first 3 games, and we have a bit more quality against a lesser opposition like we would have than Arsenal, we will win the game. And yeah, Gary's prediction is very similar to mine. I think we'll win quite comfortably, 3-0. And look, as bad as it might feel now, Chris, we've been in worse situations before. There was times under Conte and Jose when we were in that bad run of form where I couldn't really see any positives because the football was that bad. At least the players, you know, they do have an identity. There's a way of playing. And yes, they lacked a wee bit of belief in Sunday, but I do believe they're behind this style of play. I do think they're enjoying it. It's just we need to brush up on the basics. Defend. We need to be better in both boxes because I think between the boxes we've actually been very good. It's just in the boxes we've been poor. So if we can turn that,
we could have. You know, we've had chances in all our games.
Well, that's it, and I think it can turn. So look, I'm still behind Ange. I'm still behind this team. Yes, we've given a wee bit of criticism tonight, but look, we have to call it how we see it. We can't come on here and you know and be what's the word, delusional. We can't come on here and
we've just lost to Arsenal.
Well, that's it. You know, and we have to say it how it is. But look, I really hope, and I know they will be. The away fans that go to Coventry, I know you two are going. They'll be right behind the team on Wednesday night. And look, all it takes is 1-1, and you take that on this Saturday and beat Brentford, and things are looking much better after that. So look, it's a big week, but I'm confident we're going to be feeling much better this time next Monday when we do the podcast than what we did this week.
Well, Gary's going 3-0, Gareth's going 3-0, I'm going 2-0. Darren, what are you going for?
3-1.
3-1. Superb. So hopefully we are all smiling Wednesday evening. Now, just before we go, please do let us know where you are watching from around the world, and we'll put as many of them up as we can. Darren, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a while since you've been on, but like buses, you are back with us on Saturday.
Yes. I'm like the clap. Once you got me, you can't get rid of me.
Where can people find you on social media, and what interesting things are you up to at the moment?
I'm on at Darren Altman on X. I'm at Darren Altman on TikTok. So I'll be full of the skibbity Riz Sigma on TikTok. Don't know what that means. Just thought I'd say it. And what am I up to? Doing my voiceovers. I'm on the new Bet365 advert.
I've heard ya.
But you wouldn't hear me. I'm so low in the mix. I'm a commentator on that. Did you notice it?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Whenever I'm in the car and one of your adverts come up, I can tell your voice a mile away now.
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm on the new TV Bet365.
What do you say?
There's a weird marathon, and the guy's got his fridge on his back, and I'm one of the commentators in the background. What else am I on? I can't think. Oh, I did something for Paramount TV or for their social media channels, and I did something for Heinz. Is there a rapper called Archie or Arch? I don't know. There's some young rapper dude, and I'm with him. Anyway, I don't bloody know what I'm doing. There you go.
There's someone from Romford watching.
Romford, go.
Hey, Craig.
There. Hey,
hold on. Oh, let me do my quick Craig impression. Hold on. Yeah.
He's always vaping, isn't he?
Gary, where can people find you and what you're up to at the moment?
You can find me. Well, you can find me on stage, but that's a whole different story. But listen, while I remember, Chris, I want to say a big shout out to all the fans on yesterday, who came up to me to say hello and was like, I know you off the podcast picking me, so I absolutely loved it. So if ever you see me at the stadium or whatever, please do come up, shake my hand, say hello, because that was a really positive thing for me on Sunday, was the amount of fans that came up to me who obviously said about the podcast and stuff. I really got a buzz out of that. So that was one positive from it. But yeah, look, I'm always on Instagram. Give me a follow. It's Gary Maloney 13, Facebook Gary Maloney. I'm always posting stuff up on that. Look, I was a bit down, a bit depressed. I feel a lot better about things now. It always takes me 24 hours of the North London derby. But look, we dust ourselves down and we go again. You know, it's Wednesday. I'll be driving down to Coventry. Hopefully, the drive back will be a nice one. Fingers crossed. After a win, and then we beat Brentford on Saturday, and then it's all positive again, isn't it? And we're happy. So let's see how we do. Come on.
Let's hope so. Well, thank you, Gary. Gareth, where can people find you? You're still doing the podcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on the Twitter there below at Gareth Hotspurs, and yes, do the podcast that an Arsenal fan on the other night, and he's been giving me absolute dogs abuse since. But that's all part of it. If you're ever looking for some more content other than Spurs, we cover all the Premier League. Obviously, over here in Ireland, there's a massive Man United, Liverpool, Celtic following. But we do obviously talk about Spurs as well. Unfortunately, we'll have to talk about Spurs this week on it. Coaching away. So still coaching away. Monday night's kind of the only night I'll be sort of in the house that I'll usually be coming in later on in the week. But I also do a wee bit of commentating too for the local radio and the local team. So pretty busy, Chris, but that's the way we love it. Plenty of football. Always enjoy coming on here. Starting to, I think a Monday night now, I've put on the last 2 or 3 Mondays. So always a good night to come on and talk football. Somebody's asking where I'm from there in Northern Ireland, and it's Derry. It's right on the border of North and South. But yeah, always good to have you on or come on here, Chris. Monday night football, we love it. I think this has turned into a big thing now, the Monday night analysis show. People seem to enjoy it, so always good to be part of it. And of course, they have such a great panel with these two on as well, because I know I've got to know these two quite well through the podcast and going to games. And that's it, that man. And next time I'm over, it's Darren's turn to buy me a pint at the stadium, so I'll be looking forward to that the next time I'm over. But no, enjoy the game tomorrow night, boys that are going. Me and Darren will be watching on the TV.
It's going to be a late night because I'm working in town. I'm doing what they call a voice of God for an award ceremony. So well, it's me who says, and the nominees for the best, whatever. So I'm going to be back late, and then I'll watch it here. So I'll watch the full game. So it'll be. Yeah,
well, I'll be back from football just in time for kickoff. So I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm confident we can win. And of course, things are only going to get better, Chris. Things are only going to get better.
Hopefully, and Darren's going to be surrounded by trophies, and let's hope that we can lift a trophy at the end of the season, says Ange Postecoglou. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We'll take anything, Gary.
Europa. We've got it. Europa.
Darren, Gary, Gareth, thank you so much for your time and input today. And as I said, thank you so much for all of the questions and comments that you've submitted. We will be doing another one of these very soon. Of course, we will be back Wednesday evening, hopefully, after Spurs have beaten Coventry in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. Enjoy the rest of your week. Come on, you Spurs.